Hello, and thank you for joining us today on The Mother of All Grief. Today we are going to chat a little bit about comfort and connecting to our loved ones on the other side and what seems to help.
I love this topic. I feel super passionate about it.
And tingly, like I already feel like they're like, yes.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yes.
Really talking about it. So one point I think we just need to come straight out and say is while you listen to this episode, be open. Because I think when it comes to talking with our loved ones in spirit, whether it's just, in your mind, out loud, through a medium, you really just have to be open to the possibilities, to their love, and just having trust in that. And it's okay if you're not super comfortable with it.
And you're allowed to think it's weird.
Totally.
Because it is weird. Like it's not the way that life looks like with our relationship with them before. It's just a matter of how can you feel less lonely and how can we still be connected?
That's right. Yeah, there are so many ways to connect with our loved ones, and you don't have to be comfortable with all of them, but I think it's just so healing to have that connection, to keep it going, because I don't know about you, but I'm definitely not okay with my son's death being the end and that's it.
Right.
And I think that in generations past, that's kind of how it was.
And in certain cultures and religions, it was like shunned, like you're like speaking with the devil. And I don't believe that. I feel like they're trying to talk to us. And I feel like, why can't we lead them and everything, or let them lead us, sorry. And like, I don't know, I feel like it's very interchangeable. Whatever, like God is a God and Marin is kind of my God now. Do you find that with Tyson?
Totally. Sometimes I actually just had this reminder the other day of, and I feel like I've been told this a few times, like, yes, talk to Tyson, but also like talk to God. And I say that as a person who, like, I'm not religious. I believe in God, universe, creator,
Same.
Whatever you want to call it.
But not so much like a organized.
Yeah, I don't practice an organized religion.
I say the same, like I'm high in faith. I'm a very faithful, spiritual person, but it doesn't have the rules.
Yeah.
It goes back to that being open piece.
Yeah, and religion is a beautiful thing too. I think like it's teaching us to love and believe in something that we can't see.
And I love that too for people if that's what gives them comfort and that whatever works.
Yeah.
With no judgment.
So whether you practice a specific religion, whether you are just spiritual, maybe you're not even sure what you believe in, that's okay. Let's just go into this and be open to possibilities. So,
well, like for me, I really had to be more open with things with our hard, long journey, like because in order to like keep strength up that whole time. I was working with a Reiki therapist and friend, and she's an intuitive life coach, and she had recommended this book to me, and it was called Your Soul's Gift, and it was talking about like pre-birth plans. Have you heard of those before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
and
absolutely.
Like, so then it's basically like this piece of acceptance for me was being like, Marin chose this life, and I chose this life, and Scott chose this life, and it was this whole thing of like, I was also told early on to be like, we have a choice here, are you going to be bitter or better? Bitter or better was always my mantra. And it was like, it kind of goes hand in hand, to be this, if this was already prearranged, how am I going to make this a lesson instead of fighting it the whole time and not just like leaning in?
Absolutely. No, I think that is so beautiful. I love that. Bitter or better.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we just have to trust.
And so much trust. Trust is like the best word, but real hard to do at times too.
So hard because it's trusting and believing a process that
hurts way too much and doesn't seem fair.
That's right. Or you don't believe in it. You're like, no, like you're fighting against it, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But like if you can just, I think, there's so much peace in acceptance of like, okay, I'm just going to lean in and trust this and be open and know that the universe has a plan for me.
And I think it's like some days you are open and you can hear that. So it's like if you're feeling that way right now and you're like, nope, shut it off. You know what? Please just try to turn it back on another day. Because some days you will listen and you will be able to hear it. And other days, I think that you just have a block.
Especially in early grief.
For sure.
That's a really big thing. In fact, if you speak with a medium, one of the things they will say is wait until some time has gone by, because your grief can kind of, create a block and
I bet.
weigh you down when it's so fresh and so raw. But yeah, just continue to like, don't give up. And you may feel dark and blocked out. I have days where, not days, sometimes it's months where I'm like, I'm not feeling Tyson as much. And I know it's never his problem. It's a me problem.
Yes.
It's I've been blocking him out because I'm either over busy or, like the weather's bogging me down or all the different things, right?
I sometimes wonder why she like leaves. Like I'm just like, well, why haven't I heard her for a while? Like, did I do something? But then you, like you say, you wonder where it, or is it like that she's busy helping other people instead?
Definitely.
I don't know.
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite ways to connect with Marin?
Well, early on, I really started just trying to like meditate and like quiet my mind to like hear her, like yoga. And like I would go to these meditation nights and they would be like ways to tap in, but
we went to some together, didn't we?
We did, yeah. Which is like, because I went actually even before she was gone. And then just trying to like learn how to like quiet that. I think it's kind of a craft you need to work at. What do you think?
Oh yeah, meditation is, it's hard. And I think a lot of people give up on it because it's hard. Or they're like, they have this idea of what meditation looks like.
Or they're just like, I have ADHD. I can't be still in my mind. I find that there's a lot of people that are like that. But it did take some practice for me. Like I started with like an 8-minute one. And then, whatever, like you need the right voice to, like, if you start guided. You don't like guided, though.
No, I actually don't like guided. I have this one song that I listen to, and it, to me, it's the sound of what, like, the afterlife sounds like.
Oh, right. I remember you saying
like, there's
that.
something so strong in me. Yeah. So when I hear that music, I feel like I'm transported to another time.
Can you hear him over that?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
Oh, definitely. Because I get so far into like this meditative state that like everything else just kind of melts away.
I feel like I needed to hear it from somebody else. So more like my intuitive life coach or like I have another Reiki lady that I see that I would like to hear it from them. But I feel like once after Marin passed, I was real protective of that. And I didn't want to just like, I could see how people would want to be like, I need to see psychics because I want to hear from her. I want to hear right now. But for me, I was like, I only want to make sure they're not going to offend me or like say something that's not going to make me angry because I was very and still can be easily offended.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I was waiting to see like a good one.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of controversy around mediums and psychics. And I think that you have to find one that's really reputable. And also just trusting your gut.
Yeah.
Because I have...
Or who lands in your lap, maybe. Even.
Right. Like I can say pretty much every medium I have seen has been incredible. There was one, it was like a group reading. And pretty much everybody walked away from it being like,
That was a reach.
Well, it wasn't that. It was, I felt like the woman's energy wasn't as high as it could be. So for those who may not understand how mediums work, it's very much as that's called. So the spirit world, they kind of vibrate. They exist on this like really high energy plane. And we are kind of down here, right? And so but having a medium, they kind of come in between. And what they're doing is they are kind of raising their vibration level. The spirit is lowering their vibration level. And then there's still this kind of gap in between. So it's never perfect, but they're able to tune in and channel spirit. And a good medium is going to provide evidential proof of their existence. So not just, oh, your loved one in spirit misses you. Because that's baloney. They actually don't miss you because they're right there with you.
Interesting.
But a good medium is going to tell you things that nobody else knows, right? So finding somebody who you can trust, who your heart just feels safe with, is so important. We have had some incredible readings, and I know our first mediumship reading was a turning point in like my husband's belief, because a lot of people are skeptical, right? And if you go in being skeptical, you're making it harder, right? It's coming back to that, be open, just see where it takes you. And the medium was a lot of the times they'll talk about like how the person died, and that was happening. But then she said, Tyson's telling me that he likes to like shut doors on you guys, or like he recently shut a door. And I just remember Jordan being like, oh my gosh, because maybe like a week prior to that, my sister was down visiting, and the boys were like, Mom, Dad, Auntie, we like set up a party in Tyson's bedroom. And that was in the basement. So we all went downstairs. And as we got to the bottom of the stairs, the door at the top of the stairs just shut all by itself.
And all of you recognized this?
Yeah, everybody was like, who shut that? The cats were already down there with us. There's no other animals. There are no windows. Like, this was in winter, so like no windows were even open.
Wild.
6 years later, the door has never shut. Like, this was like the only time. And so the fact that she knew that, right? Like, that's not something we post on social media. This wasn't like, and it was like, yes. And she's like, well, he was letting you know that like he was coming down there with you guys. Like, you guys had a little party set up in his bedroom. Like, of course he's coming with you.
Of course he's there.
So,
I love that. So, like, how did she say, like, shut the door? Like, if there wasn't some sort of truth to that.
Totally. And she knew the number that he sent us. She's like, he's showing me a lot of 11s, that you guys see that a lot. And yes, my head, like, it was thing after thing that it was like, how did you know that? How did you know that? And it's all just coming from a place of love and that's healing, to know that they're there with you.
When we went to, same thing, Scott was pretty skeptic, and I've always been open to this kind of stuff, but he was nervous. And so we went to see this one, and she was just like, right away, she was like, oh, okay, she was young. And she was like, she was little. And then she was like, oh, it's no bang, so it wasn't an accident. She's like, she's showing me her whole body. Like, was it a blood thing? And I was like, well, no, it was like a mitochondrial disease. So it's like her energy and, everywhere. And she was like, oh, so she got weaker. Okay, here we go. Yeah. And it was just like, how did she know that? Yeah. You could guess, I guess, but I just don't think that's what was happening.
No. Because you know what? I've never had a medium assume that Tyson died of a sickness.
Oh.
They've always known
it was an accident.
Specifics.
Interesting.
And it can be hard to hear, because I'm like, I get to the point now where I'm like, Tyson, like, we don't need to hear the specifics anymore. Like, can we just jump into the good stuff?
Interesting.
But, yeah, they always know.
Cool.
Yeah. I think that's, I think a lot of people, that's one of their first steps, is wanting to, you want proof that they're still there.
Yeah.
And I think it's because deep down, they're not really gone. But wouldn't it be great to have some proof? Yeah. Right? Because we have egos.
And hearing from them. Like, I just don't want to stop hearing that I'm making her proud, or that I'm like doing the right things to like leave her legacy right, or I don't know. I like you say, ego is like that. I need that reassurance that it's like, okay, mom, you're doing okay there without me,
Right.
because I felt like as a parent, you feel like your kids are your purpose, and that you, I don't know, they let us know that we're, if they're growing up okay, it makes us feel like we're doing okay.
Right. And we, like, I think we know that they're proud of us, but like you said, just to hear that, to, and not just hear, like, oh, they're proud of you, but like proof of it.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one medium talking, she's like, do you guys have like a big expansive yard? Like, he's showing me like these beautiful gardens. And I was like, he's talking about his garden. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, no, it looks like a park. And I'm like, yeah, it looks like a park. Like, it's not like a little corner of the garden. Like, it has a path, and like it's like a park. So, you know, it's like that reassurance of like,
How did she know that?
yeah, but Tyson sees it.
Yeah.
And of course I know that, but just to hear it is like really comforting.
And so sometimes I just feel like I hear her. And one time there was like a significant event that I got invited to, an Indigenous sweat. And it's a very sacred thing. But I am interested always in learning about other cultures and different people's grief journeys, and how they, because of course child loss isn't new. This has been around for ages, and I get some comfort of hearing other people's resilience and survival, and which is a lot of the reason why we decided to do this in the first place.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in this culture, they have like a year of mourning, and then they have a song that they sing that's like the wiping of the tears ceremony, which is so, like, I just was so touched that they did this for me. Beautiful. Anyways, but that day I had thoughts that weren't mine. So I didn't, because I meditate with my eyes closed, like the elder was saying, like, Kath, did you see that? And I was like, I had my eyes closed. Like, no, but I heard thoughts that weren't mine. So it was like, you were the mom and now I'm the mom. And like, I haven't had that thought before. So it wasn't my thought. Like, it was like, I'm going to do the leading now. And I was like, okay. Wow. So like in that way, like, yes, there's still God, but like Marin's doing my leading, or that's what I'm going to be, just like as if I'm the daughter. Yeah. I guess. I don't know. Like, it's so strange, but it's also like comforting, and I just liked that. Do you know?
Yeah. And we all have that ability, actually. You don't need a medium or a psychic. We all have it built into us. So it's called the clairs. You can be clairvoyant, which is seeing something, whether it's with your physical eyes, which is quite rare, but it's usually with your mind's eye.
Like a vision.
Like a vision, or like a daydream.
Okay.
There's your clairaudience, hearing something. And again, sometimes, like, my husband has physically heard things, whereas for the most part, it's like your inner ear, your inner hearing. And there's lots of different clairs. Your clairsentience is like a feeling,
like a knowing,
or well, that's like that would be your claircognizance.
Oh, that's different. Okay.
Yeah, that's like your inner knowing. The feeling would be like physically feeling something,
or like a hand around you, or like that. Oh, or what did you say that's called?
Clairsentience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and claircognizance, which is the one that I'm strongest in, probably because I'm a know-it-all. Self-proclaimed. It's my inner knowing. So like that gut feeling.
Yes. I think I'm strong with that too.
Yeah. And I think...
Is it like personality, or?
It's the hardest. Like, I think it happens, but it's the hardest one to trust. Because it's that just knowing. You're like, why did I know that? But I just have to trust that.
Like an intuitive side.
For sure. And like, there's lots of other ones, but we all have that ability. And so to be able to hear that, but you do have to get yourself into like a you don't always have to be in a meditative state. Sometimes it's like, here's a perfect example. Have you ever been driving and you just kind of like zoned out, and then all of a sudden like someone pops into your head, or like a thought pops into your head? Like,
that's what I love now about like, I don't have to text and drive, but if you're driving and somebody like that, you can just be like, hey Siri, text so and so, and then you can just like tell it to do that, because that happens to me a lot, that I'm like, oh, I'm thinking to this person, I should tell them that I'm thinking about them. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy that you messaged me because of blah, 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 blah.
Right. That's you're tapping into your intuition, right?
Mm-hmm. Like I often would know people were pregnant before they would like tell people, because my knowing. But was I know it all? Or is it just a strong intuition? I'm not sure.
I love that. So just on the topic of like getting into that meditative state, I have a couple little stories. So meditation was probably my first tool for connecting with Tyson. And I remember him coming to me so clearly that I was like, this is great. Like, maybe it's not going to be this hard, because all I have to do is meditate and he's right there.
Oh, and he comes to you.
He comes to me and I could see him and I could feel him hug me, and like my grandmother would come through, and I would just have these incredible visions. And then one day, it's like, he just didn't come. And then the next day, like, he didn't come. And I was like, what the heck? And so I started doing some journaling, and I actually had a medium like actually tell me these same words. I was becoming reliant on him that way.
Yep.
And it was actually causing like a block in my healing. Because spirit, yes, they want to connect with you, but you can't, it's like you can't always go to psychic and mediums. You can't always meditate and expect them to be there.
For sure.
Because you have to move forward. You have to heal.
Because then are you stuck too much in the past if you're doing that?
And it was like I was going there to escape everything else, because I was like, oh, it's okay. And I even remember telling my husband, like, you should try it. Like, you get to be with Tyson again. It's incredible.
He's like, my wife's lost her mind.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure he thought that before.
He probably continues to.
Absolutely.
Mine does, for sure.
But it was a good lesson for me to be like, okay, this is special and this is sacred, but I can't do it all the time.
Right.
It's like drinking alcohol or eating chocolate
Just
cake.
balance.
You have to have balance.
I think that I felt that way after the second time that we went to the psychic together, because we voice noted it, so then I can like listen to it again. And then I was like, okay, well, I just need to check in. Like, anytime I was making any decision, I'd be like, hey, how do you feel about this? And then, like, with my intuitive life coaches or my Reiki friends and I was like, I need to stop doing this. Because, again, that same thing, when can I just trust my knowing and my, like, we need to have multiple ways to get comfort from them, I think.
Right. And I think early on in grief, too, right? Like, we're just desperate. We're grasping for different things. And, like, I remember somebody saying, oh, you should see a medium once a year. And I was like, like once every 3 months.
Okay.
And now I'm definitely like once every year and a half.
Yeah, we have a year, like an annual kind of thing that we do.
Yeah.
Like in between our birthdays kind of thing.
It's a nice balance, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One time, I'm not going to say I was meditating, but this story is really, I think it's incredible, because it's just like it still to this day is one of the most profound things that ever happened to me. I'm going to say I was around the 1 year mark, and I was really, really struggling. And I'd crawled into bed, and I could hear my husband starting to fall asleep, he's snoring, and I'm like choking back my tears, and I'm like, I'm going to wake him, because I'm like trying to hold my sobs in. So I went downstairs in the dark, and I sat on the floor, and I yelled at God. I yelled at Tyson. How dare you take him from me? I can't keep going. I can't do this for the rest of my life. I'm not going to survive. And what kind of God are you that you would take away my child? I was so, so angry. And I was angry at God. So I kind of like wiped my tears, and I went back upstairs into bed, and I laid on my back, and my eyes were closed. And all of a sudden I could feel myself actually lifting. I could feel myself lifting from the bed, and I could feel both of my hands. They were being held, and I knew one was Tyson, and I knew the other one was God. And this is coming from like I said, a person, and I don't practice any sort of religion, but I knew this was God, universe, creator, whatever. And my eyes were closed and I could see the brightest, most golden light I have ever, ever experienced. It was, can't even explain it. And as I was lifting, and I just remember thinking, like, don't open your eyes because it's going to go away. And I could feel this presence come in and this warmth over my body. And it was like, how do I explain this? It was like I was shown the whole picture. I was shown right up to the end, and that everything was going to be okay. But it was in a way that I couldn't actually see it, and I can't tell you what I saw. All I know is it was like my soul was being spoken to, and I knew that everything was going to be okay. And the peace that washed over me, I remember just like feeling myself lower down. And I kept like moving for like the next minute or two. I could feel myself move, like the light come close and then go back. And it was like that clinging. Like I was like, oh, I want to go back. I want to go back. And you hear people say that when they have near-death experiences of like, oh, they wanted to go back. Like, I don't want to be here, because they knew how good that felt. And even though this wasn't a near-death experience, I could feel myself just
wanting to be there.
It's like part of me was there and part of me was here. And it was a real turning point, because it was like, Tyson is okay and this is all going to be okay. Even though in that moment, I really didn't believe it. And just the love that I felt from Tyson and God or the universe, it was so powerful that it was like, it was really, really life-changing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that it was like because you were just at such a rock bottom that day?
Absolutely. Because I've had one other experience, but it was not God. I have never felt God's presence the way I did in that moment. And I think it was because I was like, I was at my lowest point. And I can say that definitely was my lowest point. There was one other time where I was doing yard work, and I think this might have been after this, and I got off my lawnmower, I was listening to music, and it just really triggered something in me, and I fell to my knees and I screamed like bloody murder. I needed to let it out, and my eyes were closed, and I could feel this circle surrounding me, and it was like all my ancestors and every person who had ever loved me and who had ever lost a child was just like surrounding me, like holding me, being like, it's okay.
Like helping hold you up.
Yeah. And it was just, those are my only two really like powerful experiences, but
wow,
they were definitely life-changing. So, you can have these experiences and sometimes they're out of your control, right? You can meditate all day long. You can pray to God. You can whatever. But I think that what comes to you is like what you need in that moment.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, those are big. I don't know that I've experienced anything that extreme.
Well, and there are people who I know who have like visually seen their loved ones. And I'm always jealous of that.
Yeah, I just in my dreams. Like, do you have lots of dreams? Like, I feel like that would be the place where I feel like she comes more so, like, is in my sleep.
I have some dreams, not many though. How do you feel when you wake up from those dreams?
Depends. It depends on the day. Some days I'm just like, oh yeah, everything is okay and everything's good. And then other ones are just like, makes you miss them more.
Yeah.
We recently just got a puppy, which I think is like a big sign from Marin, because the dog's name on the ad was Panda. And she looks like a panda. And so it was pretty hard for me to say no. And even though we didn't necessarily want a dog, we have a dog now. We're hoping that it just like fills our home with some love. But anyway, so the other day I took the dog for a walk, and as I've talked about my walks before, is like I always just feel like they're with Marin, because she liked to drive her wheelchair through the park, and it's always just been my place. And though she loved the bridges, she liked the sound of her wheelchair over the bridges. And so we were walking the bridge. Anyway, so the first time of the dog's walk, it had been a cold spell and it was finally nice. And so I was like, hey, let's go. And I just went on a couple of the bridges. And so then I was like, hey, I want to take a picture of like me and Panda. And so like I felt like Marin was so with us that I was calling the Panda. I was like, hey, Marin, look at the picture like on my phone. And I was like, Marin, I'm like, Panda. Like I totally like was like, I just said Marin. Like, why did I say Marin's name? But I was just like, I think she's here. I think
you
that
felt her
she's
so strongly.
Yeah, it was so, it caught me by surprise, or I was just like, oh, I'm losing it here. But I loved that she was like, yeah, sweet Marin, like Marin. I just said, yeah, Panda's like walking this with me, so I thought that was kind of cool.
That is really special.
Yeah, because, and even Scott's just like, I just want to love this dog like Marin would love this dog, you know, and because you always just feel her. But that's another way that I connect sometimes too, is like, ever since Marin has passed, animals love me. Like, not that they didn't before, but like they just seem to really come at me. And so I was like, oh, like I just think that Marin's with me and they come near me because Marin's presence is so significant. And a friend of mine was just like, well, maybe it's actually Marin through the animal.
Oh, interesting.
I know. Isn't that kind of cool that it's like that she's coming, like that's why they're coming so up to you, because she can come through them to get close to you. And I was like, I like that too.
That's amazing. Well, and animals are so in tune with spirit. Same with little kids, right?
Yes.
Like they're just, because they're more open.
Yeah.
They're more open than we are. Animals don't have the ego that we do. Right?
And like the overthinking of being like, no, that's weird.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Definitely.
funny.
Oh, I just love that. Mm-hmm. So your walks, you find you can connect with Marin on
Yeah, and music, like depends on like on some days I can like listen to an audiobook or listen to whatever, but other days it's like, no, I listen to my music that reminds me of her, and like that I can cry some days, and some days I feel empowered by them, and then the next day I'll like bawl my face off. So I don't know, like it's just funny.
Well, and there's so many different ways that our loved ones in spirit can kind of send us those little like, I'm here, right? Could be through a song, the lyrics in music, or, you know, dimes on the floor, butterflies, right?
Yeah.
Like
Blue jays for us.
Blue jays for us too.
Love it.
Yeah. It's,
because they're rare, I think that's why. It's like not things that you see all the time.
well, yeah, exactly.
So it feels like hummingbirds for some people. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good one too.
Or cardinals.
Yep, cardinals. Yeah.
Which we don't have cardinals out here. I think more like east side of the province.
Yeah.
But even blue jays, like I know up in Saskatoon there's a lot of blue jays, but for us, we get one blue jay that comes during the fall migration, like for a day or two.
It's like lost.
Yeah. But he always like comes and I like run out with peanuts and
Yeah. Please stay.
yeah, stay a little longer.
Oh, I love that.
So I think that kind of leads to another thing, is just talking to your loved one in spirit.
Yep.
Having like asking them questions.
Oh, yes.
And waiting for a response.
I remember you telling me about that, of like you used to like say, today Tyson, show me. Talk about that.
Yeah. We played our like sign game of, I'll ask for something and I'll try and make it like really outrageous, like a banjo. Send me a banjo. You have 1 week.
You give him a time limit. Okay.
Yeah. You have to be specific. If it's harder ones, I'll give him like more time. Yeah. And I don't think there is one that he hasn't like.
That's so cool.
I've asked for.
So what other questions do you ask?
Well, like you said, asking like for guidance from them, right? So sometimes I'm just asking like, oh, what do you think we should do? Or sometimes it's silly. I'll be like, we're going to have a family movie night. And I'll be like, okay, well, Tyson, like you pick the movie. Or like when I was talking about the strollers, right? Like you pick which families are going to get these strollers.
Oh, yes.
Right? And so that may seem crazy to some people, but it's like a way that I bring him in. And it's cool because I always seem to get like a sign from it.
And like that they can still be our bestie over there too. Like I feel like, you know, she was like my little bestie all the time here. 100%. So they just know what you're doing all the time.
So here's a good example of this. It just happened a couple days ago. Something mundane. I was watering my plants, and I went to the cupboard where my watering can is, and I saw this little jar of liquid fertilizer, and I'm like, oh, my poor plants. I don't ever fertilize. Maybe I should fertilize them. And I grabbed it, and behind it, there was another jar of liquid fertilizer for orchids, because many, many years ago, I had orchids. And I was like, oh, orchids. Like, I haven't had an orchid in years. And it was just sort of a thought, and it passed, and I watered my plants. And the next day, or maybe it was that evening, my girlfriend sent me a picture of an orchid that had been trained into the shape of a heart. And I was like, oh, you shut your face. And as soon as I saw it, I could, again, it was that hearing. I could hear Tyson, and he was like, even in the mundane things, you know, like, you expect me to be there during this moment or that moment, but don't you realize I'm also there just when you water your plants?
Right.
Like,
it doesn't have to be a big event.
It doesn't have to be my heaven day or Christmas or
Right.
my brother's birthday. Like, I'm just in the house. I'm just with you.
Oh, that's so nice.
And that comfort, right? Of like, I don't need to worry because he's there.
Yeah,
It's a really good feeling.
that is good.
Almost better than getting like them on big, because then you have like an expectation, like, oh, it's Christmas. Please send us a sign on Christmas because I want to feel close to you. But when you just get it, it's like flowers just because, right? Not because it's your birthday, but just because.
Yeah,
I don't know. I really love that.
I do too.
So
Just popping in.
what, do you use any like divinity tools or anything like that for connecting with Marin?
Not for connecting with Marin, but sometimes just for connecting with like source, or like if I'm feeling like in turmoil with like decision making, or I have lots of oracle cards. Like, I have a little bit of a bad habit of like several decks. But even with my practice, like, I'm a massage therapist, and so sometimes my clients that are into that kind of thing, I'll be like, okay, pick a card, and then I've just got a few different decks, and which is fun. I just like that message that can come through.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, message me after and be like, oh my gosh, like, that was exactly what I needed to hear. And were you at the one, remember the meditation night where, no, I don't think you were there that time. Okay, so this meditation night would have been, so the April before Marin passed. And a good friend of mine was walking over, and when she walked, a card just like jumped out. And so she just like, I'm like, Lish, like, you got that thing, and like it jumped. She's like, oh. So she goes, I'm like, well, you can't just put it back. Like, we need to read it. And so we were reading this, and it was just like, oh my goodness. Like, I still remember, I can still see the deck. I can still see the card. It was like a lion, and it was like this number 44, of course, which is like, but it was just like, something bad is going to happen, but things are going to be okay from it. And so we're like, oh my God. Like, all of us were like that new, we were just like bawling, but it was like, okay, like, this was a card we needed to read. And so I think that there's just sometimes a lot of power that can come from that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a good way to kind of like bridge that gap of if you're new, and well, not even if you're new, but like, it's a good starting point if you don't know where to start, right?
Yeah.
Pull some cards if you're into that.
And they have like, you can do like a past, like a 3-card pull, they call it. Mm-hmm. And so like your past, present, future, and then read the little things for each one of those. Do you do that? Do that?
I don't. I usually just pull one card. I actually have a deck that's called Messages from Heaven.
Oh.
And so it's not quite the same. They're just like really little messages, but quite often I will ask Tyson a question. Like, sometimes it's even just a statement. Like, I really miss you right now, and I need to hear from you. Mm. And I'll shuffle the cards, and I usually wait till one like falls out or something.
Yep.
And I tell you not, like, almost every single time it's something like, you don't need to miss me. I'm right here with you. I love you.
Nice.
And so, you know, sometimes when I'm just either not in the mood to make the connection myself, or maybe I've got that block in the way and I'm needing that kind of extra, I don't know, like that extra push.
Yeah.
It can be really great.
Because it feels like a message from him.
That's right.
Just something comfort. my girls and I always love crystals too. Do you guys have lots of crystals?
Yes.
So I have the cutest video, actually. We should maybe link it, of Marin. Like, because we knew, like, okay, when there's a new moon, you need to, or full moon and new moon, whatever it is, that put the crystals out on the deck to clean them. And there's a cute video of Marin talking about them. What are we doing?
Taking the door.
Checking out your crystals?
Yeah.
And what did we do with them last night?
Put them outside.
How come we put them outside?
Because we wanted to get the moon cleaned out.
And so what do you think now?
They're clean.
They are clean?
Yeah.
Think they seem like they're cleaned?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Are those ones your favorite? Are they talking to you?
Yeah.
What are they saying?
They're saying too.
Anyways, and they just love to like pick them, and I was like, okay, if we'd walk in the crystal store, where are you being called to? Or I'll never forget, Ada was, like, my girls were small. Ada used to have really bad nightmares, and we went to this crystal store, and Ada just went straight to this crystal, and it's called red jasper, and it's for like night terrors and stuff. Like, she literally walked to it, and then she came over to me, and she's just like, Mom, can we have these? And it's like kids angel tarot cards. And I was like, I looked at the person working, I was like, I guess she's special, you know? Like, it was just so neat to see, like, this innocence of, like, when you talk about being open, that, like, I feel like kids just have that ability to, they say that lots, with kids can see things.
Definitely.
Because they don't question it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the different ways that there are to connect with our loved ones.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of those ways might not be for you, and that's okay.
That is okay.
I think that as long as you can find a way to feel peace in your life, then that's great. That's healing for you.
Yeah. That's what we can only wish for each other, and like for ourselves, for sure. And that's what I wish for to come out of these chats.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys have any stories of connection, how you connect with your loved ones, or what kind of things bring you comfort, please share them with us.
And if you have ways that you want to help us, like tell us ways that you get comfort that we maybe missed and didn't say, or questions that you want us to talk about, then please share.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.